All right, so let's get started. Quick background. I'm the co-founder of India Sourcing Network. I've been in the sourcing industry for over 25 years. I worked in China, Philippines, Singapore, and currently based in India, focused on helping global importers source products from India. We also organize a sourcing trip to India twice a year. It's called India Sourcing Trip. I'll talk a little bit about the trip towards the end of the presentation. Okay, so the first and most important thing that importers need to know is how to find and vet suppliers. So here are just some tips on how to find suppliers in India. First of all, Google. Google is not blocked in India like it is in China. So you can just go to Google, do a search for your product category, manufacturer in India, and you'll be able to, hopefully find some manufacturers. A lot of the websites of manufacturers are not updated on a regular basis, but at least you'll get some basic information and their contact details from there. Sometimes companies, don't respond really quickly, so got to be patient and try to call them or get them on WhatsApp. You can also go on Alibaba, and in fact, Alibaba and Global Sources, these are the two export-focused directories that you can search for suppliers on. Most of the companies on these two websites are, of course, Chinese companies, but there are companies from India and other countries as well. Take note that on Alibaba, a lot of the companies are actually trading companies, or they may not have factories, and they may just be sourcing products from other suppliers. So you've got to just make sure that you vet them really well, and determine that they're a legit company. Be cautious with this website called India Mart. It will come up a lot in search results, but a lot of the suppliers on India Mart are actually local distributors who may be buying products from, let's say, China or other brands and then selling in the domestic market. So they're not really exporters or manufacturers. So just be a bit cautious of this website. Exhibitions, these are a great way to find manufacturers. So there's this Indian Handicrafts and Gifts Fair that's held twice a year in India, April and October. In fact, during our India sourcing trip, we also visit this fair. It has about 4,000 export-focused, mostly manufacturers, and it's a great place to, meet with suppliers and also see lots of products. There are also product-specific exhibitions that you can visit. For example, there's this textiles exhibition that has a lot of fabrics and apparel, fashion accessories. Then there are also exhibitions focused on, let's say, jewelry and other specific categories. So look for those. There are also government organizations which are called export promotion councils that have lists of exporters who are their members. So you can go to these councils' websites and then search for suppliers from there. And you can also contact sourcing agencies. For example, India Sourcing Network, my company, we also help global importers source from India. Okay, what is the best way to vet suppliers? Now, a lot of the government websites in India are in English, so this information is actually easy to access, and a lot of the company-related information is actually available online for free. So all companies in India must have a GST. So you can actually find out, usually they display the GST on their website, or you can just type in GST plus a supplier name to get their GST number. You could go to this website or just search, check India GST, and then you come to this website, which is the government's GST website, enter the GST number, and then there you can check their nature of business and also how frequently they have been filing their GST. Like if, for example, their GST is suspended for some reason, that's a red flag. Sometimes companies might say that they are a manufacturer, but they may be a trading company. So the information that you find on this website that is tied to their GST will tell you what their nature of business is, whether they are a manufacturer or wholesaler or trading company or merchant exporter. So that's also a good way to determine if this company is really a manufacturer. This is just a screenshot of the GST portal. So over here you can see the constitution of the business. It's a proprietorship. The GST is active, and it doesn't show here, but I think on the next page, it also shows the main business type, and it would show manufacturer or merchant exporter. The other thing you can do is check their import-export code. So in India, for any company to export, they require an IEC code. And you can check if a supplier has an IEC code. There have been instances where people come to me and say that, hey, we sourced this product from a manufacturer, but they don't have an IEC code and they can't export. So then, it takes like a month or so to apply for the IEC code. And then there's a lot of other documentation that needs to be done as well. So make sure that any supplier you deal with already has an IEC code and they are export experienced. So you can ask for their IEC code or just Google search IEC code plus supplier name. And then you go to the government website. Again, just search for IEC, check IEC code India, and go to the government website and actually check if their IEC code is valid. When did they apply for the IEC code? Is it suspended? And again, even over here, you can see their business type, whether they are a manufacturer or a merchant exporter. So those are some ways to find and vet suppliers. Once you have found a couple of suppliers and you want to shortlist and you start, talking to a few suppliers, one of the most important things to do is focus on the supplier's capability, their core strength, because in India and even in China, in fact, there is this yes culture where people will say, yes, of course we can do it. Yes, we can do it. But what they will do is they will go and, find another factory to produce that product, even if they can't make it themselves. It does happen, sometimes, not always. I mean, some suppliers will straight away tell you, hey, this is not a product, we can't make it. But, many suppliers will say, yeah, we can do it. But what you've got to do is ask them a lot of deep questions, try to find out what their strongest product line is. What do they really specialize in? What types of orders have they done in the past? What kinds of products and materials do they mostly work with? What kinds of buyers have they sourced? Have they, sold products to? What kind of equipment and machinery do they have? What do they do in-house and what do they outsource? So in India, a lot of companies really specialize in products by material. So for example, if a company does, let's say, wood, all of their equipment, the machinery, the labor that they use, they really be specialized in wooden products. So if they do any sort of, let's say metal or glass, that's going to be outsourced. So if a company specializes in wood, then you must source, wood from them. Don't source metal from such a company. Whereas if a company does mostly metal, they would have metal working machines. They would have, electroplating, in-house electroplating, powder coating, all of those kinds of things. So they would specialize in metal. And so you should, source metal products from a metal manufacturer. I know it sounds very, basic, but sometimes it's difficult to tell what a company really specializes in until you start talking to them, do video calls, and really get information, extract information from them. Negotiation. So this is always a fun topic. And I think in China as well, there's a lot of negotiation. So when you're sourcing from India, do negotiate. If you don't, then you may be leaving money on the table. So usually suppliers do add some buffer in the price that they quote you because they want to account for the fact that you might negotiate. So you should negotiate. Negotiate on larger orders, of course, where it makes more sense. If you're just placing an order for $200-300, maybe a test order or so, it doesn't really make sense to negotiate. So once you start scaling, maybe, if your first order is large enough, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000, then you can negotiate over there. Negotiate as you increase order quantity. And in fact, these discussions can be had even when you start working with them, that, hey, can have sort of a tiered pricing where as you increase your quantities, your prices decrease. Don't give until you get something in return. So negotiation is not always about money. It can also be lead times. It can be, maybe courier costs or payment terms. So there's always give and take in negotiation. Hold your ground and be persistent and patient. Negotiation takes time. It's fun in some cases. But, if you are sure about what you want, then be ready to walk away if the supplier is unable to meet your specific requirements. Again, negotiations will take time, so be patient. And ultimately, any deal that you finalize should be a win-win for you and your supplier. And this is true regardless of where you're sourcing from. But I think in India, it's even more important because partnerships and sourcing and business is very relationship based. So you do want to make sure that the supplier does not feel like he's not winning or he's losing out on the deal. It should be a win-win for you and your supplier, so they will also feel more motivated to work with you. Managing lead times. There's sometimes an issue in India because a lot of companies that you deal with would be maybe small, mid-sized companies, not very professionally organized. I mean, not all companies, but a lot of the companies that do small orders, for example, a lot of Amazon sellers source in small quantities, so they've got to work with, typically small, mid-sized companies. And many of these companies might be not very well organized. Maybe they're family-run businesses that, where the owner or the owner's son or daughter, they're managing all of a lot of different things. And so, there might be delays. So there are a couple of things that you should do to manage lead times. First of all, make sure that your PA or agreement or contract, whatever you have with your supplier, is very clear in terms of the delivery dates, in terms of different milestones, of the entire sourcing process. And make sure that you go over the PO and the contract with the supplier to make sure that they understand each and every item and they agree to it. So you could maybe do a Zoom call or WhatsApp call or, video call, or just get them to, review everything and then do a call with them and get them to sign it. You can also have penalties to, where if there's certain delays, for example, you can impose penalties and deduct some sort of amount from the final payment. Check in with them regularly. Like a lot of what my team does is really follow up with suppliers. Hey, is everything going okay? Do you have any issues? Are we on track? Are we on time? Has the material come in? What's the status now? So if you're sourcing directly, make sure that you do check in regularly to make sure that there are no issues. Sometimes suppliers are hesitant to give you bad news, so they will just hold information that might be affecting the order, and you might come to know whatever is happening very close to the delivery date. So just make sure that you're checking in regularly. Over communicate your expectations and don't make any assumptions. So a lot of times people are not very specific about what exactly they want, and then the supplier just assumes or just uses whatever material or specifications that they think are best, or that they think you might want, or sort of our industry standards. But if you have specific guidelines, make sure that they're very, very clearly outlined so that there are no assumptions. In terms of shipping, one of the things to keep in mind is that Mumbai on the west coast of India is the main port from where most of the shipments are sent to the US. Delhi is a dry port. Like sometimes people will quote you FOB Delhi, but if that's the case, if it's an air shipment, then that's fine. You can ship out from Delhi. But if it's a sea shipment, then it should either be Mumbai or Mundra or some of the seaports. If it is Delhi, if you get FOB Delhi and it's a sea shipment, then you still have to ship the product from Delhi to Mumbai. Shipping to the East Coast of the US is generally faster and cheaper than shipping to the West Coast. Whereas for China, I'll just show you this map real quick. Currently ships actually go around Africa over here to the US, but this is a shorter route to the US than going the other way and going to the West Coast. For China, going to the West Coast is shorter and it makes more sense, but to India, typically it is East Coast. But there are ports over here as well on the East Coast of India. There's Kolkata port here, another couple of ports here. So, if you do get an FBA warehouse in the West Coast somewhere, so definitely can be shipped to the West Coast as well. Might be slightly more expensive though. That's the only thing. Also check distance of factory from port, because a lot of the factories are actually concentrated in North India. And so the product actually needs to be trucked to the port from the factory. So in general, it's best to always get FOB codes from the supplier so that the supplier is responsible for shipping the product or sending the product from the factory to the port. Okay, so lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about our upcoming sourcing trip, which is going to happen April 14th to the 20th. So this is an 8-day sourcing tour where we teach you how to source from India. We take you to a trade show so that you can meet suppliers, and we also give you some cultural experiences. So of course, the benefits of attending such a trip is that you can source innovative products in India. India has a lot of unique products that are not found in other countries. You can go to the source to get best prices. When you're meeting suppliers at an exhibition, they know that you're serious about sourcing, and so they're more likely to be more proactive and give you better prices. You can speed up the sourcing process, touching and feeling products. That's a big advantage as well. If you're sourcing online, then you're waiting for samples. It takes a couple of weeks, then you're not happy with the sample, go back. You could have multiple samples back and forth. Whereas if you go to a trade show, you can immediately tell the quality of a product, when you see it at the booth. You can also find suppliers for existing products. There's a typo here, so that should be suppliers. You can learn all about sourcing from India. You can meet with suppliers and also sourcing service providers. So we've got shipping companies, quality control companies, lawyers, and packaging companies. So we bring all of these different service providers together during the trip as well, so that you have everything that you need to source products from India. You can, of course, visit factories as well, depending on the specific product that you are looking for. And you can immerse in the country's culture and history. We go to Taj Mahal, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. And then you can, of course, network with other attendees. We also invite e-commerce experts and sourcing professionals to the trip so that there is a lot of networking, masterminding, and learning happening over there. So if you want more information, you can go to indiasourcingtrip.com. You can send us an email at info@indiasourcingtrip.com. We also offer sourcing services, so you can reach out to us in case you're not able to make it to the trip, but you still want to source products from India. We can help you with that as well. You can reach out to us at this email, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll be able to help you. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing screen. Daniel, over to you.